I never thought my life would turn out this way. If someone had told me a year ago that I'd be standing in front of a mirror in a frilly black and white maid dress, my lips tinted pink, my lashes trembling under mascara, and my trembling hands clutching a feather duster, I would have laughed and called them insane. But life has a strange way of reshaping you when you least expect it, and my story isn't one of chance. It's one of control, obedience, and an identity I never thought I'd wear. It began quietly, almost too quietly, like a storm creeping in before anyone notices the clouds. At first, it was little comments from her, my so-called mentor, guardian, and eventually my mistress. She always had this way of looking at me, of seeing something I hadn't noticed in myself. I thought she was just teasing me when she'd smirk and say, "You're far too soft for your own good." Or when she'd make remarks about how delicate my hands looked compared to the other men she knew. I brushed it off, convincing myself it was nothing more than playful banter. But then little tasks began to appear. Small requests that seemed harmless at the time. Hold this for me. Help me clean this. Carry these groceries. Nothing unusual, right? Except with each task, she began adding subtle instructions about how I should do it. Hold it with grace, not like a brute. Wipe in small, gentle circles, don't rush. Keep your back straight, shoulders down, you're too sloppy. I thought she was just a perfectionist, but no, it was something more. The first time she asked me to wear something different was the night everything shifted. It was a rainy evening, and we were stuck inside her house, the storm rattling against the windows like some dark omen. She walked into the room carrying a neatly folded black apron with delicate lace trim, setting it on the table before me. "Put it on," she said softly, not as a question but as a command. I laughed nervously. "What this? Are you serious?" Her eyes didn't waver. They had a calm, sharp intensity that pierced through my attempt at humor. "Yes, you'll wear it." Something about her tone made it impossible to refuse. My hands shook as I lifted the apron, the fabric feeling strange and almost electric against my skin. As I tied it around my waist, I caught my reflection in the mirror across the room. I looked ridiculous, or at least I told myself I did. Yet underneath that nervous laugh, something unexplainable stirred. A mix of embarrassment, fear, and an odd flutter of curiosity. "Better," she murmured, tilting her head as if inspecting me like a project. But not enough. That night, she didn't stop at the apron. She brought out a simple headband with a small bow, slipping it onto my head with a firm but oddly gentle touch. Then she handed me a rag and pointed to the table. "Now clean. But do it as I've taught you. Slow, graceful, obedient." The word obedient hung in the air heavier than thunder. My face burned as I bent over, trying to mimic her instructions, trying not to think about how ridiculous I looked. She corrected me constantly, fixing the angle of my elbows, the softness of my movements, the way I bent my knees. "No slouching. Keep your chin up. Look delicate, not clumsy." By the time the storm outside had passed, I was standing in front of her flushed and humiliated, yet strangely compliant. She leaned forward, brushing a strand of hair from my forehead, and whispered, "See, you're already learning." From that night onward, there was no going back. Each day brought new instructions, new expectations. The apron soon became a uniform. The uniform grew into skirts, stockings, bows, and blouses I never thought I'd touch, let alone wear. And with each garment came a new layer of submission, another part of myself stripped away and reshaped under her control. I told myself it was temporary, that I was just humoring her demands, that I could walk away whenever I wanted. But deep down, I already knew I was trapped. Not by force, but by something stronger. A need to obey, to be molded, to be seen through her eyes. And as I looked at myself in the mirror one quiet morning, the reflection staring back wasn't a joke anymore. It was someone new. Someone fragile, polished, obedient. Someone I didn't fully recognize, yet couldn't look away from. That was only the beginning. The days after that storm blurred together, yet each one seemed to carry me deeper into a role I hadn't chosen but couldn't escape. At first, she gave me excuses. "You'll be neater this way. You need discipline. You'll learn respect." But soon, explanations weren't needed. Her word became enough. I was expected to obey, no questions asked, and somewhere inside me, I already knew resistance was pointless. One morning, I awoke to find a neatly folded set of clothes laid out on the chair by my bed. A black skirt, pleated and short enough to make my legs feel exposed. A crisp white blouse with puffed sleeves and delicate buttons shaped like tiny pearls. White knee-high socks. And at the very top of the pile, a black bow with satin ribbon. I stared at them for what felt like hours, my heart hammering in my chest. When she appeared at the doorway, her arms crossed, her eyes sharp but calm, she said only 2 words: "Get dressed." I hesitated, but my body moved anyway. As I slipped into the blouse, its fabric hugged my torso snugly, making my frame look smaller, more delicate. The skirt swished lightly against my thighs, every movement a reminder that I wasn't wearing the comfort of trousers anymore. My socks clung tight, soft against my calves, and when she tied the bow neatly in my collar, I felt the final thread of masculinity fray. She circled me like a teacher assessing her student. "Better," she said, though her tone suggested there was still much to improve. "But posture. Stand up straighter. Shoulders back. Chin high. Don't shuffle like a boy. Glide like a maid." Every correction came with a gentle touch, a hand guiding my shoulder, a finger under my chin, a tap to my wrist. Each touch carried weight, not of violence, but of ownership. My body wasn't mine anymore, it was hers to adjust, to mold, to shape. And then came the makeup. She sat me down in front of her vanity, the mirror surrounded by lights that made my pale, nervous face look even more fragile. "Sit still," she ordered softly, and I obeyed, hands clenching the edge of the chair. She dabbed foundation against my skin, brushed powder to soften my jawline, painted a delicate flush across my cheeks. My eyes widened as mascara lengthened my lashes, turning every blink into something unfamiliar. And when she finally pressed the pink gloss onto my lips, my breath caught. The person in the mirror wasn't me. Or rather, it was me, hidden, reshaped, revealed in a way I had never dared to imagine. My throat tightened, and I whispered, "I look ridiculous." She shook her head, leaning close so that her reflection hovered beside mine. "No. You look exactly as you should. This is who you are when you stop pretending." Her words stung because I wanted to deny them, but a part of me couldn't. My reflection was fragile, polished, and strangely right. I hated how much I couldn't look away. From then on, every day was training. Cleaning wasn't just cleaning, it was a ritual of precision. I had to polish silverware while keeping my pink-tipped nails unchipped, sweep floors while gliding silently, as though my movements were a dance. I was corrected constantly. "Don't bend like that, it's unseemly. Hold the tray gracefully, with fingertips, not fists. Smile softly, not too wide. You're a maid, not a clown." Each lesson pressed me further into the role, until my old self began to feel distant, like a fading shadow I could no longer grasp. The boy I had been seemed sloppy, clumsy, incomplete. The maid I was becoming, obedient, polished, delicate, felt inevitable. Yet with every step, a storm raged inside me. Some nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, asking myself why I didn't just walk away. The clothes weren't chains. The bows and frills weren't locks. I could leave any time, couldn't I? But when morning came and she called my name, when she handed me the day's outfit and expected obedience, my body obeyed before my mind could argue. I told myself it was fear, that I didn't want to face her disappointment or anger. But the truth was darker, more complicated. A small, trembling part of me needed her approval, needed her to say, "Better. Good. Obedient." And when she did, when her lips curled into that rare, satisfied smile, I felt a rush of warmth stronger than pride, heavier than shame. It was submission, and I was beginning to crave it. Obedience was no longer just a task, it was becoming the air I breathed, the weight pressing against my chest every morning when I opened my eyes. And with obedience came something I hadn't anticipated: humiliation. Not the cruel kind meant to break me apart, but the calculated kind, designed to reshape me, to strip away pride and replace it with submission. The first time she invited someone else to witness my new reality, I thought my heart might stop. It was late afternoon when the doorbell rang. I was dusting shelves, dressed in the black skirt and blouse she had chosen that morning, white stockings hugging my legs, a lace apron tied snug around my waist, and a small bow clipped neatly in my hair. She had even added a touch of blush to my cheeks and gloss to my lips before I began my chores. When the knock echoed again, I froze. "Mistress, who's that?" I whispered, my voice trembling. She didn't answer me with words at first. She walked to the door, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor, and pulled it open. Standing there was her friend, someone I had seen once or twice before. My stomach lurched as their eyes immediately fell on me. For a moment, the silence was unbearable. Then came the laugh. Not cruel, not mocking exactly, but amused, light, as though they were looking at a child caught playing dress-up. My cheeks burned hot enough to sear. "She's learning," Mistress said calmly, her voice carrying that same tone of authority as always. "Still clumsy, but improving."
She.
The word hit me harder than anything else. She hadn't used it before. Not to my face, not in front of others. I wanted to protest, to shout, "I'm not a she, I'm not this, I'm not your maid." But the words stuck in my throat. All I could do was stand there, my hands clutching the feather duster, my legs locked in place, my face glowing with humiliation. Her friend smiled knowingly. "She looks adorable. You've done well with this one." The conversation continued as though I wasn't even there, as though I was nothing more than part of the furniture, a decoration in lace and bows. And maybe that was the point. Mistress instructed me to serve them tea, and I obeyed with shaky hands, trying desperately not to spill as the tray rattled against my palms. Each step I took made my skirt sway, a humiliating reminder of how exposed and delicate I had become. When I finally set the cups down, her friend clapped softly. So graceful. Almost believable. Almost. The words stung more than the laughter. Almost wasn't enough. Almost meant I was failing her. I glanced at Mistress nervously, searching for disappointment in her eyes, but instead I found something worse, a calm, knowing smirk, as though she could see right through me, as though she knew how much I craved her approval, even in my humiliation. That night, when her friend had gone, I expected her to release me, to let me shed the skirt and makeup and crawl back into my own skin. But instead, she pulled me in front of the mirror once more. "Do you see yourself?" she asked, her voice soft but unyielding. I nodded, unable to speak. "This is what you are now. A maid. Obedient.
Pretty.
Humble. You will learn to embrace it." I swallowed hard, staring at the reflection. The boy I had been seemed to have vanished entirely. What looked back at me was fragile, painted, servile. And though my mind screamed denial, my chest tightened with something frighteningly close to acceptance. The next days blurred into harder lessons. I wasn't just cleaning anymore, I was being trained. Mistress drilled me in curtsies, in polite greetings, in carrying trays with elegance. She corrected every mistake with a sharp word or a firm touch. When I fumbled, she made me repeat the task again, and again until my body moved automatically. And always there was the humiliation. The mirror became my constant companion. I had to practice speaking softly while gazing at myself, to rehearse smiles that looked sweet rather than awkward. I had to twirl in skirts to prove I could move gracefully, even as my ears burned with shame. At night, when I collapsed into bed, I told myself I hated it. I told myself this wasn't me, that I was being broken, controlled, reshaped against my will. And yet, in the stillness of the dark, I couldn't deny the other truth, the small, dangerous thrill of obedience. The flicker of pride when she said, "Better." The warmth of being seen, shaped, and owned. I was humiliated. I was obedient. I was changing. And the scariest part was how much I was beginning to need it. Days turned into weeks, and soon, I could hardly remember a time when I wasn't under her command. What had begun as small humiliations had become a routine, a rhythm of obedience that dictated my every action. My mornings no longer belonged to me. They began the same way, always with her voice calling my name and a neatly laid out uniform waiting for me to step into. One morning, the outfit was different. Instead of the simple blouse and skirt, there was a full maid's uniform. A crisp black dress with puffed sleeves, trimmed with white lace, an apron with a wide bow that tied at the back, and a frilly headpiece that matched. My stomach dropped at the sight of it. This wasn't playful anymore, it was official. Final. A uniform for someone who wasn't me. I stood frozen until she entered the room. Her eyes swept over the untouched clothes, then locked on mine with quiet authority. "Why aren't you dressed?" My throat tightened. It's too much. I can't. You will. 2 words, spoken so simply, and my resistance crumbled. My trembling hands picked up the dress, slipping it over my body, feeling the fabric settle against me with suffocating finality. The apron tied snugly, the bow resting firmly between my shoulder blades, the headpiece placed neatly atop my hair. When I turned to the mirror, I gasped. I wasn't just wearing her chosen clothes anymore. I looked like a maid. My figure was slight enough, my skin softened from her daily care, my movements already trained. I could hardly recognize the boy beneath it all. Mistress circled me, inspecting every detail. She straightened my apron strings, smoothed the fabric of my skirt, adjusted the bow at my collar. Each touch reminded me how little control I had left. Then she stepped back, arms folded, and said, "Perfect. Now curtsy." I faltered. "Curtsy." She nodded, like a maid greets her mistress. "Now." My knees bent awkwardly, my skirt swishing as I dipped, my eyes cast downward. I must have looked ridiculous, but she didn't laugh. Instead, she corrected me, adjusting the angle of my legs, the softness of my arms, the tilt of my head. Again and again until the curtsy became fluid, graceful. "Better," she finally said. And with that single word, something inside me flickered. Shame, yes, but also a strange warmth. I had done well. I had pleased her. That day marked the beginning of a stricter training. No longer was I just cleaning and serving. Now I was being taught how to exist as her maid in every way. My voice had to soften. My movements had to flow. My smiles had to seem gentle and inviting. She even drilled me in serving etiquette, how to hold trays with elegance, how to pour tea without spilling a drop, how to stand silently with hands folded neatly at my waist. Every mistake was corrected, every flaw addressed. She demanded perfection, and though I stumbled often, I found myself craving her approval more with each passing day. But the hardest part wasn't the training. It was the mirror. She made me stand before it every night, dressed in full uniform, makeup perfectly applied, posture flawless. I had to watch myself, study myself, acknowledge what I had become. And the more I looked, the less I recognized the boy I thought I was. My reflection was no longer a disguise. It was beginning to feel permanent. Sometimes I whispered to myself in the mirror, testing the words I was too afraid to say aloud. "I'm her maid. I'm obedient. I'm hers." The words made my chest tighten, my stomach twist, but they also filled me with a strange, undeniable comfort. One evening, after a long day of training, Mistress stood behind me as I gazed at my reflection. She placed her hands gently on my shoulders, her voice low and certain. "Do you see him anywhere? The boy you once were?" I swallowed hard, staring into the glass. The truth was terrifying. I couldn't. "No," I whispered. "Good," she said softly, her lips curling into a satisfied smile. "Because he no longer exists. You're my maid now. My obedient little one." Her words sank into me like ink into paper, permanent and impossible to erase. And for the first time, I didn't just feel humiliated. I felt owned. Until then, everything had happened within the walls of her home. My obedience, my training, my humiliation, all of it was private, hidden behind curtains and locked doors. As much as I struggled with it, there was safety in knowing no one else could see. That safety shattered the moment Mistress decided it was time for me to be tested. I woke one morning to find my uniform laid out as usual, but there was something different. The skirt was shorter, the apron frillier, the stockings sheer instead of opaque. And beside the outfit sat a pair of black shoes with a delicate strap and a modest heel. My heart pounded just looking at them. When Mistress entered, she saw the fear in my eyes instantly. "You'll wear it," she said calmly, as though it wasn't even up for debate. I swallowed hard. "Where are we going?" She smiled faintly, a glimmer of amusement in her eyes. "You'll see." The uniform felt heavier than usual as I slipped it on, my hands trembling with every button I fastened. The shoes were awkward, forcing me to balance carefully, my steps clicking lightly against the floor. When she finished painting my lips with a glossy pink and tying the ribbon neatly at my collar, I felt completely trapped in the role. And then she led me to the door. My stomach dropped. "Mistress, please, no one can." "Silence," she said firmly, her voice leaving no room for argument. "You're ready." The outside air felt sharp against my skin as we stepped out. Every sound, every passing car, every breeze tugging at my skirt made me want to shrink into nothingness. But Mistress walked calmly beside me, her heels clicking with confidence, while I stumbled to keep up, my cheeks burning with shame. We didn't go far. Just a small cafe nearby, quiet but public enough that every step toward it felt like 1,000 eyes were watching me. My reflection in the cafe window nearly made me faint, a maid, bow-tied and polished, standing nervously beside a woman who held absolute control over her. Inside, Mistress guided me to a table. "Sit gracefully," she ordered softly, and I obeyed, smoothing my skirt nervously as I lowered myself onto the chair. My heart raced as the waitress approached, her eyes flickering over me with a mixture of curiosity and confusion. Did she see through me? Did she know? Mistress ordered for us, her voice calm, while I sat silently, my hands folded neatly in my lap just as I had been trained. When the tea arrived, Mistress leaned close, whispering, "Pour it. Show me what you've learned." My hands shook as I lifted the teapot, tilting it slowly, carefully. The liquid flowed into her cup, then mine, without a single spill. Relief flooded me, but before I could breathe, she added, "Now serve me." I froze. "A cheer?" "In front of." Her eyes narrowed.
"Now."
My face burned as I lifted the delicate cup, offering it to her with trembling hands. She accepted it gracefully, taking a slow sip, her lips curling into a faint smile. "Good girl," she murmured, just loud enough for me to hear. The words hit me harder than anything. Good girl. My chest tightened, my mind swirled, my body trembled. Part of me wanted to run, to tear off the uniform and scream that this wasn't who I was. But another part, a darker, quieter part, swelled with warmth, desperate for more of her approval. The rest of the cafe visit was a blur. Every movement felt magnified, every glance from strangers like a spotlight on my humiliation. And yet, through it all, Mistress remained calm, guiding me with subtle instructions, ensuring I never slipped too far. When we finally stepped back outside, I thought I might collapse from the tension. But Mistress turned to me, her eyes steady, her voice soft but firm. "You did well. I'm proud of you." Those words, simple as they were, filled me with a mix of relief and confusion. I should have hated every second of it. I should have been angry, humiliated, furious. And I was on the surface. But beneath that, deeper than I wanted to admit, was something else. Pride. I had obeyed. I had survived. And I had pleased her. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I couldn't escape the truth anymore. The line between who I was and who she was making me had blurred beyond recognition. And though part of me still screamed in resistance, another part, the part that tightened every time she said, "Good girl," was beginning to win. I wasn't just being trained. I was being transformed. After the cafe, things changed. Mistress had tested me in public, and I had survived. More than that, I had pleased her. That single fact seemed to ignite something in her, a certainty that I was ready for more. From that day forward, my training became stricter, deeper, woven into every moment of my life. It began with rules. Written, clear, impossible to ignore. One morning, I awoke to find a sheet of paper pinned neatly to my mirror. At the top, in her elegant handwriting, it read, "Rules for my maid." My eyes scanned down the list, my heart sinking with every line. You will rise early and dress immediately in the uniform I provide. You will address me only as mistress at all times. You will curtsy when never entering or leaving my presence. You will keep your posture flawless, even when alone. You will speak softly, with grace, never raising your voice. You will perform all tasks with elegance and obedience, without complaint. You will not refer to yourself as a boy. You are my maid. My hands trembled as I read the final line again and again. Not refer to myself as a boy. It felt like the last thread connecting me to who I had been was being cut. When mistress entered, she found me still staring at the paper, frozen. She walked behind me, her reflection appearing beside mine in the mirror. "Do you understand?" she asked softly. I nodded weakly. "Yes, mistress." "Then curtsy." I obeyed. From that day on, the rules governed everything. If I slipped, even slightly, there were consequences, not cruel punishments, but firm reminders of her control. If I forgot to curtsy, she made me repeat it 20 times until my knees ached. If I slouched, she placed a book on my head and made me walk until my posture corrected. If I spoke too loudly, she silenced me with a finger to my lips and a disappointed look that cut deeper than any scolding. But when I obeyed, when I performed perfectly, her approval was intoxicating. A nod, a smile, a gentle good girl. Those moments felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. I lived for them, even as I hated myself for it. The mirror became both my enemy and my teacher. Each morning, I had to stand before it fully dressed, checking every detail of my uniform, every line of my makeup, every curve of my posture. Mistress often joined me, pointing out flaws, correcting me with sharp precision. "Smile softer. Tilt your head slightly. Hands folded neatly. You're not sloppy, you're mine." And every night, before I was allowed to rest, I had to present myself to her one final time, curtsying gracefully, whispering, "Good night, mistress." The words tasted strange at first, but soon they rolled off my tongue without thought, like breathing. The deeper I sank into the rules, the more the boy I had been faded. I stopped thinking of trousers or rough movements or loud voices. Those things felt foreign now, out of place. My days were filled with bows and frills, soft steps and gentle smiles. And though I told myself I hated it, I could feel my resistance weakening. One evening, as I served her tea, mistress studied me carefully. Her gaze was sharp, as though searching for something beneath the surface. Finally, she asked, "Who are you?" I froze. The answer should have been simple. My name, my identity, the person I had always been. But as I opened my mouth, the words caught in my throat. She leaned closer. "Say it." My lips trembled. I'm your maid." Her smile widened, satisfied. "Good girl." The words rang in my ears long after she left the room. I sat there, staring at my reflection in the teapot surface, seeing the glossy lips, the flushed cheeks, the lace apron tied neatly at my waist. And for the first time, I wondered if I even remembered who I had been before all this. The rules had stripped me of choices, but mistress wasn't finished. She wanted more. She wanted permanence. One morning, instead of my usual uniform, I found an entire wardrobe waiting for me, an open closet filled with nothing but maid dresses, aprons, stockings, bows, and delicate shoes. My old clothes were gone. Not a single shirt, not a pair of trousers, not even a trace of the boyish outfits I had once taken for granted. Panic surged through me. "Mistress, where are my clothes?" She stood in the doorway, calm, composed, her arms folded. "You don't need them anymore. You're my maid, not a boy. A maid has a uniform. Now dress." My lips parted in protest, but no sound came out. The truth was crushing. My escape routes were disappearing. Without my old clothes, without the comfort of slipping back into who I used to be, I was trapped. Yet even as fear tightened my chest, my hands moved on their own, reaching for the neatly pressed uniform. Mistress watched silently as I dressed, her eyes sharp, searching. When I was finished, standing nervously before her in frills and bows, she nodded. From now on, you'll wear only what I provide. At all times. Do you understand? Yes, mistress, I whispered, my voice trembling. The days that followed blurred into a routine of total obedience. Morning began with dressing, makeup, and inspection. Then came cleaning, serving, and training. My world had shrunk to her house, her rules, her control. There was no outside anymore, no escape, no chance to pretend this was temporary. But Mistress wasn't satisfied with just controlling my clothes. She began reshaping my habits, my mannerisms, my very way of existing. If I sat too casually, she corrected me. If I walked too heavily, she made me practice with books on my head until my steps were silent and graceful. If my voice slipped into its natural tone, she reminded me sharply, softly, sweetly, always. At night, she drilled me in recitations. I had to stand before her, bowing my head, and repeat phrases until I believed them. I am your maid. I exist to serve. I am obedient. I am your good girl. The first time I said those words, they nearly choked me. But repetition wore me down, softening the resistance inside me until the phrases slipped from my lips without thought. Each time Mistress nodded approvingly, warmth spread through me, filling the cracks where my old identity had been. One evening, after a particularly long day of chores, Mistress led me to the mirror again. I was exhausted, my makeup slightly smudged, my apron wrinkled from constant work. But she made me stand tall, adjusting my bow, brushing stray hair from my face. Look, she whispered. This is who you are now. Do you see any trace of the boy left? I stared into the glass. My reflection gazed back, fragile and feminine, lace framing my figure, ribbons softening my appearance. My lips trembled as I searched for the boy I once knew, but he was gone. Vanished. All I saw was the maid. No, I whispered. Mistress smiled, her voice low but firm. Good. Because he no longer exists. Only my maid remains. Her words wrapped around me like chains, heavy and unbreakable. That night, as I lay in bed in a frilly nightgown she had chosen for me, I realized something terrifying. I couldn't remember the last time I thought of myself as him. The boy I had been was fading into a ghost, and the maid she was shaping stood in his place. And the more I resisted the thought, the more I realized another truth. Part of me didn't want to resist anymore. Life as Mistress's maid had become my new reality, yet some small part of me still clung to the fragile hope that it might remain private. That hope shattered the evening she announced we would be hosting guests. I froze mid-task, the feather duster trembling in my hand. Guests? Yes, she replied calmly, setting a tray of delicate teacups onto the table. Friends of mine. They'll be joining us for dinner. And you, of course, will serve. My throat tightened. Mistress, I can't. What if they? She silenced me with a look sharp enough to pierce steel. You will serve. You will obey. And you will make me proud. The hours leading up to their arrival were agonizing. Mistress dressed me herself, choosing the crispest uniform, the frilliest apron, the stockings that clung perfectly to my legs. She styled my hair neatly, tied a ribbon in place, and carefully reapplied my makeup until my reflection looked polished and delicate, every trace of the boy buried deep beneath layers of lace and powder. When the doorbell finally rang, my knees nearly gave out. Mistress's hand rested lightly on my back, guiding me forward. Head up. Smile softly. Obedience is beauty, she whispered. Her guests entered with cheerful voices that faltered the moment their eyes landed on me. I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. My cheeks burned, my heart thundered, and yet Mistress remained serene, introducing me not as who I had been, but as her maid. She's still in training, Mistress explained with a faint smile, as though discussing a delicate project. But she's learning well. The word she struck again like lightning. I wanted to deny it, to cry out, I'm not this. But instead, I curtsied as I had been taught, bowing my head politely, whispering, Welcome. The evening unfolded in a blur of humiliation. I carried trays of food and poured drinks, my hands trembling under the weight of their stares. Every mistake, a rattle of porcelain, a drop spilled, felt catastrophic, but Mistress's eyes guided me, calm and unyielding. Each time I corrected myself, her approving nod gave me the strength to continue. Her guests whispered among themselves, some amused, some bewildered. One even praised my elegance, noting how gracefully I moved despite my obvious nerves. The words should have stung, but instead, they stirred something dangerous inside me, a flicker of pride. As dessert was served, Mistress called me to her side. She placed a hand lightly on my shoulder, turning me toward her guests. Do you see how obedient she's become? How beautiful. I trembled under their gaze, my face burning, my body tense. But when Mistress's hand lingered, steady and certain, I felt anchored. Safe, even in humiliation. The night ended with one final task. Mistress instructed me to curtsy deeply before the guests as they left, thanking them softly for visiting. My voice quivered, my knees bent, my skirt swished, and the guests smiled, some amused, some approving, all satisfied. When the door finally closed, silence fell. I stood there trembling, my chest heaving, my face burning with leftover shame. Mistress stepped closer, her eyes locking on mine. You did well. Very well. Relief crashed over me like a wave, stronger than the humiliation, stronger than the fear. I had pleased her. I had survived. And in some twisted, terrifying way, I had enjoyed it. That night, lying in bed in my nightgown, I whispered to myself in the dark, I am her maid. I am obedient. I am hers. The words no longer felt like lies. They felt like truth. And that truth scared me more than anything. After Mistress's guests departed, I thought the worst humiliation was behind me. But instead, it was the beginning of something deeper, more permanent. Mistress no longer saw me as a project. She treated me as if I were already her maid, fully and completely. And to seal that truth, she began weaving rituals into every part of my day. The first ritual was greeting. Each morning, before I began chores, I had to kneel before her chair, curtsy, and whisper, Good morning, Mistress. Your maid is ready to serve. At first, the words burned my tongue, my pride clawing against every syllable. But the ritual was unshakable. If I faltered, I had to repeat it until it flowed perfectly. The second ritual was inspection. Mistress would sit calmly while I stood before her in full uniform, skirts held out, posture straight, eyes lowered. She checked every detail, my apron tied neatly, stockings unwrinkled, makeup flawless, bow symmetrical. A single flaw meant correction and repetition until I passed. The third ritual was obedience training. Mistress required me to repeat certain phrases daily, drilling them into me until they became instinct. I am obedient. I am delicate. I exist to serve. I am your good girl. Each time I spoke them, her approving smile sent warmth flooding through me, even as a voice deep inside whispered, You're losing yourself. But the most powerful ritual of all was gratitude. Each evening, after all chores were complete, I had to kneel at her feet, bow my head, and thank her for allowing me to serve. The first time nearly broke me. I felt like I was surrendering my last shred of dignity. But Mistress's eyes softened as she stroked my hair, whispering, Good maid. And in that moment, humiliation melted into a strange comfort, a fragile sense of belonging. Days blurred into weeks, each ritual tightening around me like threads weaving a net. Slowly, subtly, they reshaped me. My movements grew natural, my voice softened without thought, my body obeyed commands without hesitation. Even when I was alone, I found myself curtsying before entering rooms, smoothing my skirt, checking my reflection in the mirror. One evening, Mistress tested me. She called me into the sitting room without warning, where she sat with a book in her hands. I hurried in, curtsied, and waited for her instruction. She closed the book slowly, studying me. "Tell me who you are." My lips parted. Fear surged, but the rituals rose unbidden, guiding me. "I am your maid, mistress. I exist to serve. I am obedient." The words slipped out like breath, automatic, unresisted. Mistress's smile deepened, satisfied, certain. "Good. You are learning. Soon, there will be no difference between what you say and what you are." Her words haunted me that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, torn between terror and something dangerously close to acceptance. I wanted to scream that I wasn't hers, that I wasn't a maid. But the truth pressed heavy in my chest. I had spoken the words freely, without her command. It wasn't just training anymore. It was becoming real. And the most frightening part? I wasn't sure I wanted to fight it. The rituals had carved their marks deep into me. Days no longer felt like days, but like endless repetitions of obedience, curtsies, inspections, and whispered affirmations. My reflection had become a stranger I no longer questioned, a delicate maid with soft eyes, a ribboned bow, and a posture of submission. The boy I had been was fading, and Mistress knew it. One evening, she summoned me to her study. My heart pounded as I entered, curtsying low, apron freshly pressed, stockings flawless. She gestured to a small velvet box resting on the desk. "Kneel," she commanded. I obeyed, lowering myself to the floor, hands folded neatly in my lap. Mistress opened the box slowly, deliberately, revealing a delicate silver necklace with a tiny charm shaped like a key. The sight of it made my breath catch.